Om Namah Shivaya. Good morning. Wonderful to be with you. Wonderful to be with everyone here as well. We probably think that the topic this morning for the talk is love is the cure, by the way. And you probably have the idea that we take a lot of time to coordinate. I want to dispel that notion. And I want to honor, because this is a continuing theme, and I want to honor the higher notion that, well, there is a planning function occurring here, but it's above my pay grade. And that when we come in to serve with the idea really of simply serving, that somehow we've tied ourselves into this higher pay grade, this higher awareness, and we observe the planning happening and us participating in it. So it's beautiful how this seems to always happen. And it's just so beautiful. Thank you so much. Oh my goodness, my goodness. So love is the cure. This is the topic that we want to explore some together this morning. And so you might ask, the cure for what? And I would say you could fill in the blank. Whatever you wish to be cured of, we will find that love is the cure. And we want to discuss this some this morning and see if we can be beneficial in terms of how we look at it, how we explore this, and God willing, love willing, find something within us that resonates that we can use to help us as we move ourselves forward. You know, there's a common notion and a common perspective, and this morning we're going to take an uncommon perspective. There's a common perspective that we're seeking something here. That we're seeking God or we're seeking love. It's a very common perspective. There's a common perspective even that we have a soul. There's a common perspective that we have a soul. The uncommon perspective is I am soul, I am spirit. And it's very uncommon. We could say countercultural. And in this way one would want to be countercultural, because being aware of what is will take you against the grain, as it were. It'll take you in instead of out. And you'll find the in the out and find yourself not to be separate any longer. So the counter notion or the counter perspective, the uncommon perspective, and I'd like to invite us this morning to take this, just to imbibe in it, to accept it, to the extent of our ability to accept it, to let it resonate. And this is not that you are seeking love, it is that you are love. You already are what you seek. And there's proof for this, by the way. There's absolutely proof of this. And we'll see it in our lives. So if you accept for a moment that you are love, then you'll see that this entire movement of life is a movement of love. From love to love. One of my teachers, one day when I was with him in India, I had this feeling of love that was just becoming pervasive. It was as if the entirety of this life was shining and glowing in the love light, in the light of love, and I felt it, and I didn't feel separate from it any longer. All of my life I felt separate from love, that somehow I needed to find love, and it seems that the entire movement of this life had been a movement towards love. And then I found myself one day, and it really happened within a day, feeling that I was imbibing in love, that I was present in love, and that all of this life was and is love. And I talked with Swamiji, and I said, Swamiji, I feel like I'm falling in love. And he said, no, that's not it. He said, you're rising in love. You're rising in love. Everything you see here comes from love. And we'll make the connection here about why doesn't it seem that way? because it doesn't seem that way, and we'll accept that. And we'll discuss it a little bit, and we'll bring it back. But the statement can be fairly made, and it will always be made by the saints and sages, that everything here actually comes from love. We've heard this before, haven't we? And everything here arises from love, that love is the truth, that this God that we seek has another name as well, and the name is love, that God and love are one, that Spirit and love are one. You see, everything that we do, if you look at your own life, you'll catch it. You'll see it. Everything that we do is from love. Everything that we do is from love. The fact is, all you want is to be happy. The fact is, all any of us want, whether we are human or cat or dog or grass or tree, all that we want is to be happy. And we equate happiness and love, don't we? We equate the two together. And they're really the same. So we could say it and feel all I want is to be loved, or we could say that all I want is to be happy. And what you'll see is that the entirety of your life to this point has been a movement towards love. Ideas arise in the mind about what it is that will complete you, that will bring you this happiness or this love. It is true with every single person. We could argue over whether something's right or wrong, that's just an argument. But if we step back and look, we'll see that my entire life has been a movement towards love this entire time. And it's only from love that I have given the power and have been given the power in order to move forward towards fulfilling these desires. It is only for love of self that I would devote my entire life to have what it is that I want, because what it is that I want, I believe, will fulfill me and will make me happy. It is only from love that we would ever move. It is only from love that we would get out of bed. It is only from love that we would go find another. It is only from love that we would move across the country. So you see, from this perspective, you're not separate from love. You are love itself, and you are loving. The only issue that we suffer from is this notion of self. We draw these false lines. This word passion, it's a very interesting word. We looked at the etymology of the word, and it's not what you might think. The word passion comes from the Greek, and actually the meaning of it is to suffer. So why is it that you want to be passionate about something if it means suffering? Why would you want to suffer? Why would you want to suffer? Well, you would choose to suffer to have what you want. It's a choice to suffer. Right? It's a choice to suffer. It's a choice to suffer. If I want something that's apart from me, I'm going to have to suffer for it. So I'll be passionate for it in this way. And even to find yourself, suffering will be involved. There's really no denial of the fact that suffering is real and suffering is experienced. And by nature, we are also passionate. We are compassionate by nature. Compassionate. We share the suffering. We suffer with others. We suffer with all. So our issue isn't love. Our issue isn't lack of love. Just for a moment, taking this uncommon view, stick with it. It's not lack of love. It is that through delusion, as if we have fallen under a spell, we've imagined ourselves to be separate from everyone and everything here. We've imagined ourselves to be incomplete. We've imagined ourselves to be alone. It is as if we've drawn a line. If you take a moment and visualize, and just in the mind's eye, you can look out at night and you can see the scape of the sky. And you can see that the sky goes on forever. How could you divide the sky? How could you possibly divide the sky? Which part of that sky is yours and which part of that sky is someone else's? You catch it? I had come back to the US from India, and I had the opportunity to go back to India and visit with Swamiji again, and I said, Swamiji, can I bring you something from the US? And he said, yes, bring me some American sky, please. And if you consider it, of course, it's a laughable notion, because you'll come to this idea, how in the world could I ever divide the sky? How could I take a piece of sky? How could I take a piece of space with me? How could I take a piece of space with me? If we know something about physics or science, we know that actually we move through space. And the space just stays where it is. And we go through it. And so standing here, I occupy a little bit of space here, which is actually indivisible from this space here, or this space here. So as it were, I move through space. And actually this body itself is made of space. So not possible to move it. Love is the same. Love is the same. Love is everywhere you go. Love is your own self. Love is everywhere you go. There's not a being here who does not love. The question is, have they limited their love? And have you limited your love? And what are the limits that you've chosen for your love? If you imagine yourself to be this is a line that you've drawn in space or in love. It's a line that you've drawn. And then you imagine yourself to be contained within the line. If you choose to love someone, what's happening is you're expanding the line. You're reimagining yourself. Instead of being this, you're including someone else within your line. And you now say we. And in this way you've erased a little bit of the line and you've redrawn it now to include the two of you. And whatever happens to her or him now happens to you. And whatever happens to you now happens to her or him. So constantly we are drawing lines and erasing lines. But in fact, the truth of the matter is you don't have any lines. Your spirit, your soul. You don't have any lines. There's nothing that outlines you. In the same way that space is free, the soul is ever free. The soul is ever free. In the same way that love is eternal and love is always, you are ever loved. If you include all, then you will naturally love all. Love is not a question of creating love. Love is not a question of loving. Love is not a verb. And Swamiji would correct me on this. I would talk as if love were a verb, that you're to love someone. But in fact, you can't love someone because love is already there. All you have to do is erase the line, and love will by nature be there. If you erase the line separating you and the other, then there's no other any longer, and love will naturally be there. There's a beautiful teaching from Swami Chinmayananda, a commentary that he writes on the Bhagavad Gita, and he makes this point about love. He tries to help us imagine what is this universal love, because we imagine ourselves to be separate from it. And he wants to help us to catch what is the notion. He says, imagine that you've stubbed your toe. What happens when you stub your toe? And if you think about it for a moment, you'll see this. Well, the first thing that happens is you might yell. You might say, ah! I just stubbed my toe. But what else? What else? Do you come to the aid of your toe? Do you naturally come to the aid of your toe? In fact, the entire body immediately comes to the aid of the toe. The blood goes rushing, if it's a big one. The blood immediately goes rushing without your thinking about it. The blood goes rushing to the aid of the toe. Without your thinking about it, you bend down and you massage the toe. You hold the toe in some way. These are all acts of love, you know. And they're not thought about. You don't ask the toe whether you've been good. You don't ask the toe, what color are you? You don't say, I would come to your aid, but I don't think you're worthy. You simply come to the aid, because that's what love does. The best example in the world, and we're often pointed to this, of what is this universal love that you are, that is your own true nature. What does this universal love in action look like? And it looks a lot like the mother's love. It looks a lot like the mother's love. And so we're often given this example when we ask the question as students of the divine or students of the teachings, students of Dr. Holmes, any of these wisdom traditions. When we're students and we ask questions, we can ask, what does universal love look like? And we're given the example of the mother. And you know, this love is fierce. And the mother and the child, they'll have two different ideas of what is love. And the mother functions without the idea of what is love. The mother simply draws the line around the child. And that child is the big toe, not different. Not different from me, not separate from me. There's no idea of separation with the child. And whatever the child does, the mother is watching. And the mother will correct what is going to hurt the child, and will encourage what is going to benefit the child, and the mother will know. So if the child is out in the street playing, on a street where cars will come, then love will say, "Get out of the street." Love will say that. Love will speak loud in a booming voice and correct the child, and that's love. Love is fierce. Love is strong. Love is not some mamby-pamby, soft sweetness where only sweetness is present. It's not. So when we say love is the cure and that we're to love all, it means put the other ahead of you. Include them, care about them. Think about them before you think about yourself. This is inclusiveness. It's not loving, it's inclusiveness. And as soon as you accept, as soon as you include, love will flow. The challenge we have is that we've been restricting the flow of love. And when we restrict the flow of love outward, we restrict the flow of love inward. And it doesn't flow towards us. Because in fact, there's no separate, there's no other. This is the great mystery. There's no other here. There's never been an other here. And the child, coming from the child mind, will say, "Oh my God, my mother doesn't love me because my mother corrected me." And in this way, we're all children about love. In this way, because we come into the mind, we come into the idea of love, and the idea of love is not the same as the reality of love. Because we expect to be treated in a certain way, but that's only an expectation that exists here. It's not an expectation existing here. So we're never really separate from it. It's moving all of our activities. The call that we receive is to include. The call that we receive is to erase the barriers. And we either do it one at a time, or perhaps we find ways to erase them all at once. But it's to let go of them. It's to get the eraser out and start to go with it. And find ways to include, to accept. No two people are going to have the same belief systems. Can you change it? If you can't change it, why can't you accept it? No two people are going to have the same religious systems. Can you change it? I was talking with someone this morning saying, playing the game of patchwork here, trying to change the way people are, it's like playing the game of whack-a-mole, if anybody's ever played it. If you know what whack-a-mole is, otherwise I can't explain it. But if you go to the amusement park, you're trying to hit the mole in order to knock it down into the hole, and you win a prize if you do it. And my God, trying to change someone, we were talking about converting someone from Islam to Christianity. And I'm going to tell you the truth. Let's say that you work on this person over here who's all screwed up and they believe the wrong things, and if they would just take the love of Christ into their heart, they'll be cured and you'll be happy. About them, I don't know. But you'll be happy because they're cured. So you work on them, you talk with them, and finally one day they convert. And you say, "Oh, that's amazing." But out of your sight somewhere over here, at that exact same moment, someone is converting from Christianity to Islam. So now you're going to have to go over here. You can't change people outside. You can. Your choice is simply to accept them or not to accept them. That's all. To accept what you're given or not to accept what's given. That's all. And the difference between that is the difference between life and death. The difference between love and not love. As soon as you accept someone, you will find that love flows. As soon as you accept someone in spite of the deeds, you know, there's an idea of punishment, that so many people are doing such bad things and that I can't accept them. I remember a conversation with a group one day about acceptance, and the question was like this. Let's say that you love your partner, and the question is, what is it that your partner could do if, which they did, you could not love them any longer? And you know, that's a question to the mind, and everyone will have an answer to that. And what is that saying? That's saying that in the mind there's limitation to love, but in the heart there's not. And so as long as you draw these lines, as long as you put other people outside of it, you will separate yourself from love, and you will continue to suffer from the disease. You'll continue to fall under the spell of this spider bite or this poison apple. And you can think of Adam and Eve related to the poison apple. You'll continue to be under the spell. But as soon as you accept, as soon as you learn to accept, whether it's one person at a time, one experience at a time, then you'll find yourself coming out of the spell. Now, what's wrong with accepting? What's wrong with accepting someone who doesn't have the same belief as you? What's wrong with accepting someone that's done something wrong? What's wrong with accepting someone who's done something bad to you? What is wrong with that? Accepting someone doesn't mean that you've accepted their actions. It means that you've accepted them. And it doesn't mean that if they do something bad, you wouldn't call the police, but it does mean that you do it for them instead of doing it for yourselves. That you would do it for their benefit, their goodwill, like the mother's love, instead of so that they would stop bothering you. I discovered when I was walking pilgrimage that I'd always written myself out of love. That I was always writing my own play, and that I'd always written myself out of love. And the way I'd done it is the lines that I drew. And what I discovered in walking pilgrimage is I made the decision that I wanted to embody love, and I kept asking the Lord to help me with this. And the Lord showed me to erase the lines, and helped me to learn how to erase the lines. And as I did, a new world dawned. And I realized, oh my God, I wanted to be loved, but in separating myself, in doing something for myself, I was separating myself from love itself. That there is no other. So if I imagine an other and I draw a line, then I've isolated myself from what I want, which is the experience of fullness, the fullness of who I am. And this is truly our situation. So the inspiration today is to look at your lives. If this resonates, if you find some truth here, find a way to live it today. Find a way to live it. Find a way to put it into practice. Erase a couple of lines today. Be willing to suffer with someone else. Compassion. And find that in compassion, it's possible to draw the lines larger and larger. And the more you draw the line larger, the more you find yourself to be all full and love itself. So if we may inspire you to erase some lines, to find a way today to put it in practice and erase some lines, and see what you find. God bless you. And, I'm always in the presence of love, and I'm so grateful for you. God bless you. Thank you. Peace.